What's one principle or system that you tell every entrepreneur to install like right away if they want to get more power and more flow?
The youOS.
Yeah.
The youOS 100%. Because if not, you like business. So for years, I used to say business is a sport. Business is an infinite game. So it's like you got to have stamina. JJ Redick, he was saying that Braun, and he was like, there's some players who have competitive stamina. And he was like, competitive stamina is being able to do something at a high level and then wake up tomorrow and then do it again.
That's good.
And then wake up tomorrow and then do it again. And then wake up tomorrow and do it again for 10 years, for 15 years. Like, how is he able to do that? He got competitive stamina. And his routine. So it's like a youOS, like you as the founder, as the leader, how are you filling yourself up every day?
Hello, welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast. Wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm your host, Melvin Larry. I'm excited to be here with you guys today. I'm here with a gentleman that I met a short time ago at an event, and he just kind of rocked the house, and he just talks about some things that really touches me in a lot of ways, not only from the position of business and scaling and all of that jargon that you might know about, but also about the value of family and faith and freedom. And so I really want to introduce some of you to this gentleman. Some of you already know. If you don't know, lean in. You're going to have an opportunity to hear from this gentleman, Mr. Marquel Russell. How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm blessed to be here.
Man, I'm blessed to
be here,
too,
man.
It's
I've been looking forward to this.
Everything good?
Everything is fantastic. Better than good.
Better than good?
Yes.
Les Brown said better than good, better than most.
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. I can't complain at all, man. Life is good.
I say every day I can be seen and not viewed. It's a good day.
It's a fantastic day, man. It's an honor.
Well, listen, I'm glad to be here to talk to you. You know, the folks that I like to talk to are people who are at a place in their lives where they're, you know, looking for, so what's next? And so I like to talk to people from that perspective. And you know, you've gone through a lot. If you would, just since you're not big on introductions and bios and things of that sort, would you mind just kind of telling everybody who you are?
So who I am a child of God. That's who I am. Some of the, I guess, titles that I've accumulated over the years is husband, father. That's what I do full time. So full time, that's what I do. Father, husband, G-dad, all the things. Part time, we help businesses scale. So we help founders build companies that can actually run without them. So to date, we've helped our clients do an estimated $1 billion in revenue.
That's like with a B?
With a B. Big B.
Big, that,
yeah,
it is a big B.
Yeah, with a big B. And Inc. 5000, fastest growing company. No traditional business education. Like, I dropped out of high school in 10th grade, got a 9th grade education. So I learned to, like, in the trenches. So that's what I do. I wake up every day.
So if you met the guy at Quick Trip and you told him that, what would he say?
If I told him what part?
If you met a guy at Quick Trip and you say, hey, yeah, man, I've helped companies do $1 billion in business, what do you think that guy at Quick Trip might say at the gas station?
I mean, well, me being me, if I just met a guy at Quick Trip, I wouldn't even say that.
You wouldn't even say that? Especially not at this Quick Trip.
No. I wouldn't even say that. Like people kind of have to know.
No, you don't need them to know.
Yeah, I like to live with a level of mystique.
Yeah, but you know, you have really built from the ground up, and you learned, and we'll get more into your story because I like to really dig into that a little bit. But you moved from the hustle side of things to the building side of businesses that really will outlive you by a lot, you know, and probably the hustle has its place in there as well. But can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think so. Like growing up for me, like when you grow up, and I'm careful with. I used to say when you grow up, starting from when you come from nothing.
Yeah.
But my therapist, Dr. Kurt, shout out to Dr. Kurt. He actually, we do this event called Brunch with the Bros. As a matter of fact, if you ain't doing that Saturday, you should come through. I'll give you the details when we wrap up.
Thank you so much.
So we'd love to have you. So I know you bring a lot to the conversation. So at our last brunch with the bros, he was like, he said the fact that this idea of coming from nothing is an illusion. Because he was like, if you think about it, like think about all that you got like from your mom or from your dad. Mm-hmm. He was like, so if you got that, even if you might have lived in what you saw as poverty, you still came from something. Right. So me coming from the world I came from, like I dropped out, like I said, my aunt raised me up until like 3rd grade. And then I met my biological mom, and my aunt was a crackhead. So, she smoked crack. I probably should call her crackhead, but she smoked crack. So that's the environment.
They know what you meant.
Right. That's the environment I was in. So coming from that, you automatically begin to be ingrained with this level of living from survival. Like you want to survive, right? You want to survive. And then you also have this level of like, you got the Payless shoes, but you're like, I want the Jordans like everybody else. My first pair of Jordans, I think I got when I want to say I was in 6th grade, maybe 6th or 7th grade, maybe a little bit longer. And somebody like gave them to me. Right. Yeah. So, but you want the Jordans. Everybody had the Jordans. You want the starter coats. My first starter coat, like if folks remember the starter coats, it was like somebody gave me a starter coat. It was the Bulls one, and it was too big, but it was a starter coat though.
Well, so today being too big would work though.
Today would being too big would work. Even then being too big would work, but it was just too big.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's a starter. It's the starter joint, and it's the Bulls. Michael Jordan was that dude. See? So it's like, I was good. So, but it's like you always aspired to want the things that you didn't have. You thought you needed those things to feel affirmed. So yeah, I kind of went through that. So I was survival mode. I was always a hustler. So fast forward, when we lived in apartments, I was knocking on your door asking, can I take your trash out? We moved to neighborhoods. I'm knocking on your door like, hey, can I cut your grass? So I was always that guy. When we was in school, like late middle school, early high school, you knew people who did basketball, you knew people who did football, you knew the cheerleaders. Like I did sports, but people also knew I was to do with the weed. Right. So if you want the weed,
not
smoke,
the weed whacker for the grass,
weed to smoke. Right. You come see me if you want some weed to smoke or anything. I could kind of get you what you needed. Yeah. So I was always a hustler, and that was my core identity. I was a hustler, street dude. Like that was my thing, and that's what I aspired to be. Like my biggest vision then was to be a drug kingpin. Because the only people I knew who had money was the people who sold drugs. Right. We heard about NBA players and NFL players, but like we ain't see none of them. Yeah. I only saw my cousins who were like dope boys, and that's who I aspired to be. So I went down that route, dropped out of high school, not because I was dumb or didn't have good grades. I was just bored. So I bought my first car when I was in 10th grade. I got suspended from school. And for 10 days, because we had got into it with a dude at school, and we all got suspended for 10 days. And my mom made me go to work with her. And my mom, she was doing telemarketing. And they used to call it the Michael Jordan telemarketing.
She was that good.
So she had me sit in the lunch, the lunch area. So I had to sit in there all day. And she made me read this book called A Time to Kill.
And you were how old then?
I'm in 10th grade, so I'm probably 15.
Yeah,
like it's 15 because I had a learner's permit. So I'm 15, 16. So she had me sitting there. I read A Time to Kill. I read it in like 2 or 3 days. And I came out on the floor one day and I was like, all y'all do is read this script. I'm sitting on her desk. I'm like, all y'all, got the cubicles in the sales room, if you've ever been in the sales room. I'm like, all y'all do is read the script. And she was like, yeah. And she was like, you want to try it? And I was like, yeah. So I called a few people and I just read the script verbatim. Yeah. I called a few. Eventually somebody was like, yeah, we were selling magazine subscriptions. So I sent one up because like in this telemarketing in the sales room, when you make a sale on the floor, you got to send it up to what they call a capper. The capper calls back to essentially verify the deal. And then that finalizes it. So I sent it up. They called, they verified. You hear a bell go off.
That's what the bell goes off. Right.
Marquel, full or whatever the thing is, right? And I'm like,
you like that bell.
I love that bell, right? I was like, what? So she was like, that was a sale.
Reward and recognition.
100% reward. And because you don't get, especially as men, black men, you don't normally grow up getting affirmation and all of that, right?
That's a clue.
Yeah. So it was boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, whoa, That week I made $800. And I went and bought
15.
At 15, I went and bought a 1984 Delta 88.
Wow.
It was right up the street. It was a baby blue. I'm like, I'm going to get that. So I got it. It was just in time to go. When I went back to school, I was driving to school.
Man, you know, there's a lot in that, what you just
said. It's a lot in it.
A lot in that. You know, I had a Delta 88, but it was in 1960.
Okay.
Delta 88. I was young. It was black with red interior.
Okay.
It was convertible.
That was clean.
You know, and, all the guys wanted to hang out with me, but they would get mad at me because they would say, all you want to do is just ride around with girls. Yeah. That's all. And I was like, hello.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, I mean, the back of it was torn out of it, but I didn't care.
Still,
you know, it was good. It was good. But it also says something about how you talk about not coming from nothing. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about on this show is that people don't really value where they come from. And sometimes because it was in their mind just a bad experience, not just in their mind, but sometimes there are a lot of bad experiences with that. You can find one person who grew up in the housing projects and thinks I came from nothing, and another person has an altogether different viewpoint of it because they pull from it.
Bingo.
You know, whatever they choose to or whatever they can. But one of the things that I like to say about that is you coming from that and having a hustler's mentality early on because of your circumstances and your situations around you help to develop the tenacity in you, the ability to think for yourself, the ability to think on your feet, the ability to make decisions. What do you take from that very, very young age, 5, 6 years old, that you can say, I know that who I am today, I can see how that affected that.
Yeah, so I learned then that even when I'm knocking on your door asking, can I take your trash out for 50 cents, right? To go to the candy lady. Yeah. I learned that if you provide a service, so I was entrepreneurial then. I didn't have a word for it though. I didn't know it was called entrepreneurship. Right. So it was like, but I found that if I if I provide a solution to somebody, they'll give me money in exchange. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's capitalism. Yeah. Like that's free enterprise. Yeah. They don't teach that in school, right? Most people don't teach that. Like my mom because when she did telemarketing, she ended up starting her own telemarketing office. So she was always an entrepreneur. I remember she used to even get my friend's job because she ended up having her own spot. She started her telemarketing office like in our garage. Yeah. So but I saw her do entrepreneurship. She never sat me down and taught me, but I saw her do it. So I picked it up from that. But I learned that if I provide a solution for somebody or give them some kind of thing, I can get money in exchange. So it was never, I was never that type of person who technically like asked for money because I was like, okay, I know I can go do this, or I can go wash a car, or I can go do this, and I can actually, make money. And my mom used to always tell me, like, when I used to get in trouble, she used to always be like, Russ, don't be up there being a follower. Russells are leaders. So she always embedded that Russells are leaders, Russells are leaders, Russells are leaders. So all that you can definitely pull from.
So you developed a philosophy on that thought process, because the philosophies are developed by our cultures and our mindsets and our environments and so forth. So that became a culture, of who we are. It makes me think of that old movie where the lady said, "We're the Slocums," So yeah, I think that has a great place in it. Now you most people probably now know you for business and so forth, but you've also stepped into ministry. How did you find your way into that? It's a different kind of leadership. How did you find your way into that?
Man, like God had.
Did I step into something?
This is good. This is good. Kel said we're gonna like start having more of these conversations. So it's very fascinating. So when I was doing network marketing, one of the guys I stumbled across, because a lot of times people and the reason I want to give this context, because a lot of times we'll see like a snapshot in time.
Absolutely.
Because like what I'm doing, what people see me doing now is literally a snapshot in time.
Absolutely.
So I was doing network marketing. This is at least 10 years ago, something like that. And I'm heavy into personal development. I got bit by the personal development book. And one of the gentlemen I stumbled across was Dr. Miles Monroe. And growing up, my mom got married. She remarried my sister's dad, and then we started going back to church or whatever, right? So I'm 16. You start thinking you know a little something, and I'm like, man, what are we going to church for? We going to church now? I got a little attitude or whatever. Yeah. So she took us to church, and they were doing the tithe and the offering. And they were like, hey, we're going to do $100 line. We're going to do a $500 line, $1,000 line. You saw those type of buys before? Oh, yeah. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, and I'm a numbers guy. So people are lining up, and it's like they count. I'm adding. I'm like, man, it's a lot of money up there. And then so I'm like, I don't got no problem with people giving their money. That wasn't my issue. My issue was when I heard the first lady say, I thought this was tithes, not tips. Essentially saying that they weren't giving enough. They were not giving enough. I was like, wow. Right. So we left, and I asked my mom and them, I'm like, hey, did y'all hear her say that? And everybody would act like they didn't even hear it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. So I kind of felt the way about church. Yeah. My only other experience before that was like, I don't know if you ever been in the neighborhood when the church van used to come through the neighborhood and pick up the kids. Exactly. And take us. So that was my only experience with church before that. Sunday school, right. Exactly. So we used to just go in for the food. Right. Because like they'll come pick us up, they'll teach us a little Bible study, and we'll eat. And like, we're going for the food, and they just drop us back off in the neighborhood. So I felt the way about church. I always believed in God. I prayed even when I was a street, but I felt the way about church. Fast forward, I got introduced to Dr. Miles Monroe, and he started teaching the kingdom. And he started teaching, and I saw that he was also a businessman. And I was like, oh, you can be a businessman, be wealthy, and be in alignment, because a lot of times we don't hear that. You don't have to take a vow of poverty. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, interesting. So I got into that, and then a buddy of mine, that's why I say it's a snapshot in time. A buddy of mine I went to school with, the same guy who I told you we got spent for 10 days. Right. Same guy. He got married. He got married before me. And he started going to church. He was going to Bishop Dale Bronner's church. Okay. Word of Faith. Right. And he was like, hey, you should actually, because I was asking some advice, me and my wife Vanessa, we weren't married then. So he was just telling me, make sure you do the premarital counseling and stuff like that. And he was like, bro, you pull up at church with me one Sunday. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do that. And I'm like, I only live 10 to 15 minutes from the church. I was living like off Bankhead then. So I was like, I'll come through. So I went. And Dr. Bishop Bronner, again, come from a wealthy family, do some amazing things, amazing entrepreneur, and he's a believer, and and I'm like, wow. And he broke the word down to me, because I'm like practical, I'm logical. It's like I don't have an issue with like emotionalized messages and jumping up and down. I don't have an issue with that. Let me hear what the substance is. I need to get the substance. Like however people you experience, I don't have no issue with that, and I ain't judging, but I need to like be taught. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's what I got. So I got it, and I was taught, and I was like, cool. And then we started going there a little bit. I started learning more. And then fast forward through all of that, we started going to another church, and they were like super religious. And then my pastor there, he was, trying to get me into teaching and preaching and stuff like that. And he was developing us all to be ministers. And I'm like, he see me preaching and teaching. And I'm like, nah, not me. I'm like, especially if I got to do it like your way. Exactly. Because it's like, I don't like how you come off to people. I don't like how you treat people. I don't like how you talk to people. I'm like, that ain't really my thing. I got to the point where I used to like hate Sundays, the whole 9 yards.
You didn't want to be in situation where people were being pushed into the
situation. I didn't even want to invite people to church, right? Because of like, because my philosophy was always, it's the people with the tats, the people who smell like weed, smell like alcohol, just came from the club, the prostitutes. Like that's what the church is for, not for a building full of people who are perfect,
already perfect. Right?
Yeah, everybody here is perfect. Like let's just talk about the people who ain't perfect. We're all perfect.
That's right.
And that just never sat well with me. So I ended up leaving the church. My wife stayed because she didn't feel like God had released her yet. So I left, and before I left though, I started watching Pastor Creflo Dollar. I was watching him online. Oh, wow. And this gentleman was breaking this word down, talking about the message of grace. And I was like, wow. I was like, this is day and night compared to what I'm getting at my church. So I started having questions at our church. And me and my pastor started bumping heads a little bit. Because I'm like, this is different. So I ended up leaving the church. But I was still watching him online. And I went to the church, but it's like a massive ministry. Again, I like to have questions. I'm a builder also. So I end up seeing my pastors now on the show that he used to do. And they came from where I came from and all that. So I ended up going to the church. I ended up becoming a member, staying there. Now, mind you, I go there. I'm going there just to support them. Yeah, I'm a business guy, right? I do business. I teach business. I speak on business. This is what I do, right? That's if you want me to bring some of that, I can support. I'm with it. Yeah. My Pastor Tay, I started doing this thing called Money Sundays. On Sundays, where business who goes to the church, we staff the church. You come and ask questions and that type of thing. And she saw me teaching, and I was using scripture and so forth. And she was like, She was like, okay. She started kind of picking up on it. She started telling me that I was going to actually be teaching in the pulpit and all that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm a business guy, right? So slowly but surely, I started doing the Monday Sundays once a month. Okay. And she was like,
when you say doing it, you mean teaching?
So these were like after church, after the service, we stay after in the business, people could stay. Okay. And fast forward though, she was like, okay, you got Sunday coming up. And I was like, yeah, Monday, Sunday, like after, right? And she was like, no, like Sunday, like the main service. Yeah. And I'm like, really? And she was like, yeah. She was like, it's time.
You got pushed out.
Yeah. She was like, it's time. So I did that and it landed well. I did that a few times. And then I think last year, her husband, my other pastor, he was like, my Sunday my Sunday was coming up. He was like, man, you should do a series. He was like, you ever thought about doing a series? Because they normally do series, like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks at a time. Well, it was 4 weeks at a time. And I was like, no, I never thought about doing a series. He was like, you should do a series. So when he's like, you should do have you ever thought about doing a series? Was basically him telling me,
think about it.
You should do a series.
You doing a series.
You doing a series.
Told you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I did my first series. It was called Are You Selling for Salvation? And then, and I just started my biggest challenge was like, because I got a certain way of teaching when I'm on business. And it's like, I've seen church, the teaching can be different. And it's like, how do you make it land and how you tie it all together? So now I'm seeing that God really used me to build this whole business platform.
So you found a way to develop continuity with your brand in your ministry. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting because the wisdom of your pastors was phenomenal in guiding that process, because just to say, I'm just going to step into this. Yeah. It probably would have been a conflict with you trying to figure out what your brand is and all of that.
Yeah, because you start running, because you start having the clash of like identity, right? Like, who is my identity? And as your entrepreneur, you like, that's my identity. But when you start realizing, like, I thought my identity was an entrepreneur. I thought my identity was a businessman. So I was attached to that.
How much of that do you think is tied to what we think they think?
Like they, right?
Right.
I think all of it is. Yeah. It's like, who would I be? Like, what I always use this example. You ever saw the movie Paid in Full?
Paid in Full. I've never seen Paid in Full.
So it's a really cool movie. So it's one of my favorite movies. So it's this scene, Money Making Mitch. He's in the car talking to his guy Ace. Right? They selling like massive cocaine in New York and all through like the East Coast, and their identity was we dope boys, right? And they in the car and they was just talking about the idea of leaving the game. And Mitch was like, he was in tears. He was like, man, I love the game. He was like, if I leave the game, would the people still love me? Like, who would I be if I wasn't the dope boy? Yeah. Right? So who would I be if I wasn't an entrepreneur? That's why when it goes down to your core identity, that's why we got to be careful. Is like when somebody asks, like, tell everybody who you are. And then we automatically start going into the accolades. Like, that's actually not who I am. Exactly. Because like when you don't have that no more, then who are you?
I went to one of my best friend's funeral not long ago, a few weeks ago. And the thing that struck me most about that was the people who came up and he had accomplished some things, but they weren't talking about what he had accomplished. They talked about my grandfather took me to this game, and my dad always sat down and talked to me about this, and as I listened to that, I found myself saying, those are the things that I want people to say about me.
That's the stuff. Ain't nobody's gonna come up there at your funeral and be like, oh man, he had an XYZ net worth.
That's right.
Man, he had those cars. Like my biggest win this week, I text Kev this. One of my biggest wins I can think of right now. I text Kev this morning. My 21-year-old, he texted me yesterday. He was like, his tire had blew out. So he was like, who's the guy that come out and fix the tires? Well, he had his other tires at the grandma's house or whatever. The guy ended up being out of town, so he couldn't come. So, but he texted me back. He was like, I'm good. Everything is good. I was like, he came. He was like, no, he out of town. I was like, what you do? Because he had told me a few texts ago. He was like, he remembered me showing him how to do it when he was younger, how to change a tire.
See.
And he was like, I was like, you know how to do it. But I was like, if you want to pay somebody to do it, cool. But you know how to do it, right? So fast forward, he texted me back. He was like, everything good. I was like, well, he came. He was like, no, he was out of town. I was like, so what you do? He was like, I went ahead and put the donut on and so forth and so on. But it's like, come on, man. Like,
see?
That ain't no amount of money greater than that.
That's huge.
It's huge.
That's huge to be able to know that you are in somebody's story from that perspective. You know, because now you know that more than leaving something for them, you left something in them.
That's legacy.
That's legacy. That's what it truly.
That's legacy. It ain't about the money, how much you left, how many houses you left, how much land. None of that ain't. Because if they don't know how to manage, like if they don't have identity, because if you leave a whole thing, like most wealth is squandered in the second generation.
Yeah.
But it's like if you ain't left nothing in them, what if you leave? What are you leaving in them? And legacy ain't even like what you leave. It's like legacy is what you live.
Yeah.
Like what are you what are you putting when after you leave a conversation with somebody, what did you leave in them?
Exactly.
Like that's legacy.
And just like yesterday, I was on the phone with one of my grandsons, and he's 15, and so we were talking, and he was talking about what he wanted to do, and the next thing he's been looking at schools and things of that sort, and so he was asking me about career paths and different things of that sort. And he said, well, you know, I was thinking about going into HVAC, and I said, hey, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that you're not just going there just to be a laborer. You know, I said, learn it well, but just don't be there just to be the laborer. You know, and I talked to him about linear income and leverage income and you know, passive income and residual income and things of that sort. And the thing about it is that when we were hanging up, he was like, Granddad, I'm so glad we had this conversation. You know? And to me, what I said to him didn't mean as much to me as what he said to me. See, you know, because something had been put inside him. Let me just shift a little bit and talk a little bit about business. And I know you're that guy, system guy, and so forth. And I know that somebody said to me on more than one occasion, so what's the secret? And I said, there is no secret. There's a system. And I know for me, like I've got a history of network marketing and so forth. You know, I spent a career in corporate and a lot of years in the network marketing space. And I had a lot of years where I didn't earn really any money. And people would say, well, don't you think that was a waste? And I said, they say you didn't get rich. I said, I know I didn't get rich in all of those years before I came with my present company, but I did get enriched.
Exactly.
Because it was a business school for me.
100%.
And I learned so much in that, and I learned the value of putting in place systems and following systems and applying systems. And so you have a system in place, you call it youOS, or you know, U operating system. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you nailed it. I'm glad you said like enrich, because a lot of people think getting rich is just financial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you can win the lotto and get an influx of money, but are you rich?
No.
No, you just got a lot of money.
Yeah, might have a mindset that you're gonna be broke in a few months.
100%. Like it's like you over time you ain't make no financial money, but you relationships like you're rich.
Yeah.
Like health, like you're rich. Like so the yeah. So the UOS. So we like to look at a business as a machine that's made up of different systems. So the UOS is specifically, it's called a U operating system. Right. So we say a fully optimized business has to be ran by a fully optimized CEO. So, because a lot of times we, especially in the world of hustle culture, where we're saying hustle, grind, sleep when you're dead, you know, all this different type of stuff, right? It's like you end up burning out. So, I spoke at an event a couple weeks ago, and I opened with a study from Deloitte did a study, and they found that 83% of professionals have experienced burnout, and the other 17%, majority of them had experienced burnout, but they weren't even aware of it. And it comes from stress, no sleep, bad eating, lack of hydration, all those different things so it's like, okay, how do we do that? Well, we got to install a system. So basically part of that UOS is what is your morning routine? Like most individuals, when they wake up in the morning, they grab their phone and they start scrolling social media. That's the first thing. Right? Social media is their God. They wake up and they give honor to social media.
Their sunshine.
That's their sunshine. They wake up and they scroll. That blue light. They ain't no light outside. The blue light is their sunshine.
Right.
So they start scrolling social. And now they see Trump up to something or such and such up to something. And now we're at war or whatever. Now that's affected their entire energy for the day. Because they haven't poured anything into themselves but social. So it's like, now what do you do different? How do you alleviate that? Well, you create a specific morning success ritual. So that's number one. Number two, a second part of this UOS is an evening ritual, because your morning ritual starts in the evening. Like, how do you go to sleep? Like, what do you do in terms of going to sleep? How do you relax? Because you can actually sleep but not rest. True. You can have a full 8-9 hours of sleep and wake up and still be tired because your soul didn't get rest, your body didn't rest, right? So it's like, what does that look like? And then it's like, okay, when it comes to your calendar, what does your calendar look like? I know when we was in Kentucky, we talked about the 80-20 when it comes to your calendar and things that nature. Like, what does that look like? What's your priority? So like people will say, well, I'm focused on getting, like, health is a priority for me. But we look at the calendar and the gym ain't on it, or working out ain't on it. They say the kids are a priority. We look at the calendar, the kids ain't on the calendar.
No congruence.
No congruence. You're saying this, it sounds great, but it's like, let's look at your calendar. Yeah. And let's see if your calendar says those things. So like having this system and this rhythm in place of taking care of you first and foremost as a CEO. Because if you're a stressed out CEO, you're going to have a stressed out team. If you're an anxious leader, your team is going to be anxious. If you're jumping all over the place, your team ain't going to be confident in what you're building, because they're like, this thing may not be here for long.
What do you say to the guy who says, yeah, but man, because like you say, we're conditioned to sleep when you're dead and all that, and it's really not the reality, because we find ourselves behind. And I just did my most recent episode. I talked about the leaks that we are trying to pursue something, but the leaks are trying to do this and this and balls to walls and everything else, and leaving all of this neglected and so forth. So what do you say to that guy who says, look, I just can't afford to slow
down? I mean, it's either you slow down by choice or you slow down by force. Because like what happened is, I was talking to a client the other day, and he's one of those, he's a pusher. He like, I got to get this thing done. And he ended up having like an allergy reaction in his body where he had to rest. And he was like, he don't even have allergy like issues. I was like, that's your body responding to get you to sit down. Because if you don't rest, your body will actually make you rest. That might look like you being in the hospital for something. That's why you see people, it's people that go to the hospital and the doctors are like, we don't see nothing. And it's like, the stress. Like, it don't come up on the x-ray.
I've been there.
You know what I'm saying? It's like your body will make you sit down if you don't choose to rest.
I've been there. How do you help them to see that systems aren't slowing down, but are actually really a speed boost.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I simply ask, like, okay, what is it that you want to build? And like, do you want to, did you start this business to work, or did you start this business to create freedom? Like most business owners, they start to create freedom. So like, for example, somebody might quit their 9 to 5 to work 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just quit your 9 to 5 to work 24/7. And now you work more hours, you make less money, you're more stressed. Cause at least with a job, you can go to the job, and then once you go home, you leave it there. But it's like as an entrepreneur, you don't leave it there. It's with you. So you got to like release it. So it's like, do you want to build this thing so it actually has real value, or do you want just a job? Now you just have a job, but you got a logo and you got a name. You're your own boss and you're your own employee. Like, is that really what you want to build where you sacrifice everything? Yeah.
So you created the predictable scale flywheel, you know, and this predictable scale playbook here. Can you kind of maybe break this down and tell us what it means to that service-based entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. So it's made up of 8 pillars. So the way we came up with it is our first company was called Client Attraction University. Mm-hmm. And Client Attraction University had one main focus, helping businesses create automated client acquisition systems to get leads consistently, get clients consistently. Because if you got a business, you need leads and clients. And in that phase of my life, I thought that if you want to scale a business, all you need to do is get more leads, get more clients. That's how you grow. Get more leads, get more clients, get more leads, get more clients, get more leads, get more clients. But it's like, that only is good at a certain point, because it's like, if you're getting 5 clients a month and we help you get 20 clients a month, you probably going to work more hours. You're going to be in fulfillment. Like, how are you onboarding them? So you actually need systems to deal with all that, right? So if your calendar is filled with sales calls, now nobody else can book calls. You need a team of individuals who can now help take calls, right? And now we can actually remove you from calls. So it's like, as we scale, we realize that scaling the business isn't about just getting more clients and getting more sales. A lot of times in entrepreneurship, 90% of the advice that we see in the business education world is focused on marketing and sales. It's usually not talking about systems and team and finance, and because a lot of that stuff is less sexy than marketing and sales, right? Yeah. But it's like, when you look at the grand scheme of things, if you want to build a business that's more profitable, more scalable, more sustainable, enjoyable, and potentially sellable, like I have a lot of conversations, and a lot of times business owners haven't even considered the fact that they're building something that could be potentially sellable.
Yeah, true.
You know what I'm saying?
Entrepreneurs generally think, this is my baby.
This is my baby. And then they're wrong. Sometimes they think, well, I'm gonna just get this over to my kids.
Right.
Well, it's like, your kids don't want your business. Right? Your kids got their own thing they want to do.
They don't even want to help you in your business.
They only want to help you in your business. And they see how hard you work. Especially if you grinding 24/7, you ain't sleeping, you ain't never there, you doing this, you ain't in shape, you ain't doing none of the things. And they're like, I got this parent because of this business. Why I want it?
Yeah.
Like, your kids don't want that business. So it's like, so we looked at it and was like, okay, what are the 8 pillars? So that's how the predictable scale flywheel came about. And it came with inner game mastery. It's effortless enrollment. Like, how do you make sales superfluous? So great marketing makes selling unnecessary. So before effortless enrollment, we have multi-dimensional marketing. So how do you create a marketing system, right, where now you're getting new leads and new clients every single day? Like, even when you're traveling, you're on vacation, you sleep, you got new leads coming into the business every single day. So you got multi-dimensional marketing system, you got effortless enrollment, you got world-class team. You need a world-class team if you're gonna really build something. I like to use Michael Jordan as an example. So Michael Jordan, when he came to the NBA, it took him 7 years before he actually won a championship, before he won his first championship, because he had to get the right team in place. He had to get the right coach, not only the right coach, but he had to have the right coaching staff. A lot of times people will say, well, he had to get Phil Jackson. When you don't realize Phil Jackson got a team, right? And then they had a system, the triangle offense. And a lot of people don't realize Phil Jackson didn't create the triangle offense. The guy on his Tex Winter, the guy on his coaching staff, actually brought the triangle offense, which he got from somebody else. So they had to have the right system, they had to have the right team, and they had to have the right coaching staff. So world-class team, super important. Then you got to have financial frameworks. This is a whole nother conversation when it comes to business, because it's one thing to make money,
Yeah.
But it's a whole nother thing of like, what do you do with the money? Are you tracking cash flow, profit margin, taxes? Like you can, man, I done spoken to business owners and they're doing $500,000, million, 2, 3 million, but they don't got no financial team, no CPA in place, haven't paid taxes. And it's like, they're not structured correctly. Sometimes we'll say, just go get an LLC. But it's like, based on your business, you might have outgrown an LLC, right? You might be paying the maximum amount of taxes, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at, or you might have a bit, but you're operating as a sole proprietor. So now you're paying the most amount of taxes. So you got the financial frameworks piece, right?
Yeah.
And then you got harmony. Do you have your business built in a way where you can actually step away from the business and you not feel guilty about not working? Because you can be on vacation. I've done it. I'd be on vacation and I'm like still working.
Yeah,
I ain't on vacation.
You were in Bimini, your mind was here.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you feel guilty, be like, man, I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I should be doing more to make this money. So now can you really step away and be present with the family, trusting that you've done your part and now the business runs itself?
Yeah, because a lot of times we want to make sure that when we travel somewhere, I'm talking about myself, that I got everything there that allow me to be able to do business. I want to make sure they got good internet and all that stuff so that I can make sure that I can do business so that I can't pull away. But I thought about something that you just said when you were talking about your money and everything. And I thought about it in sort of a scenario where it's like your money becomes like a person who's wandering around lost and doesn't know where to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you haven't directed it anywhere.
Yep.
Money
is a terrible boss, but a great employee.
Isn't that something?
But you got to tell it what to do and give it a system to work.
Wow. When you're in certain areas of business, I know that different businesses operate differently. Like for instance, the direct marketing, network marketing, email, and what do you want to call it, space. There are certain ways of doing things, and things are shifting and changing. But I came up in the era where we always talk belly to belly, 3-foot rule, and things like that. But you talk about effortless enrollment in business and so forth, and that's a whole paradigm shift to the way people think, specifically in that area industry, about doing business. Can you help me understand that?
100%. So it's interesting. I got introduced to this in network marketing. So before network marketing, I did club promotions. So I was obviously in the streets. That took me to music, and even then, when we used to do mixtapes, we used to go get mixtapes printed up. We used to pay like 40 cents a piece to get it printed with the CD and everything, and we used to sell them for like $10.
That's good.
That's a nice margin,
good.
right?
That is a good margin.
So even if we sold them at $5, it was some nice
Still
margin.
Good margin.
But we were out there, like you said, belly to belly.
Yeah.
And then I got into club promotions, and we was getting 5,000 flyers printed up. We hitting the malls. We out passing out flyers.
Yeah.
This is before I even knew about social media. So then when I got into network marketing, they was like, hey, make a list of your friends and family. Go talk to your friends and family. I made a list, start talking to people. Everybody told me it was a pyramid scheme. It wasn't legit. The homies I was with every day, they weren't interested. They like, man, I ain't trying to go to these meetings. Everybody got suits on. Like, it's in the middle of the day. Like, I'd rather be doing other stuff. Yeah. So, and then I got introduced to the online marketing world, and I started learning how to generate leads.
Yeah.
And then you generate pre-sold branded leads who already raised their hand, because there's millions of people out there who want to buy what you offer. Yeah, they just don't know you exist.
They're looking for you.
They just don't know you exist yet. So how do you get in front of them? So on the way here, I was talking to a guy, my aunt. She introduced me to a friend of hers. And he has a business he's looking to grow. So me and him had a conversation. And this on the way here, and he was like, he has a ISA who's doing outbound dials for him, getting him appointments booked. But he was like, when I'm getting on the phone with him, ain't none of them buying. And I'm like, well, how was she getting these appointments? He was like, I ain't even asked her. He was like, I just think she just calling people or whatever. So I was like, imagine. He was like, well, how do y'all help differently? I was like, imagine you flipping it. Imagine now she's talking to people who've opted in and raised their hand and said, I'm interested in this.
Right.
Versus her calling them trying to convince them why they should have a conversation with you. They want to have a conversation with you because they actually raised their hand already. So that's the difference of, so now when they go through a right marketing sequence, they're already pre-sold on what you have to offer. When you go in the Apple store, they don't got to sell you on an iPhone. They don't got to sell you on an iPad. They don't got to sell you. They've already done the marketing already. So now when you come into the store, you're already pre-sold. You decide to buy or don't buy, but they don't got no heart. They don't got salesmen on the floor in the Apple store.
That's so good. That's so good, because we're in most cases so concerned about people not wanting to hear that we don't think about the fact that there are people who are looking for what we have. I mean, and it's just the truth. That's just, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you do. There are people looking for you.
100%. More than you can serve.
More than you can serve, you know. But I think that what we do is, like when I was in real estate, they would always say, don't be a secret agent. You know. Exactly. But we won't put ourselves out there for people to say. I can remember in the network marketing space, there was a guy that I had sold a house to. And he was a sourpuss. I mean, he sit there and he frowned the whole time. Now I'm saying he picked the house, but he frowned the whole time, and he just so I'm new in my business, so I just need to talk to somebody. So I called him up. I said, okay, come over. And so I showed it to him, man, and he started licking the paint off of it, man. He was just all over it, man. I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do now? You know, because I hadn't had anybody like that who just wanted it that bad. And when somebody wants something, they just want it.
They just want it. You can't do nothing to make them not buy.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, listen, you know, we talk about growing and building businesses and you know, 5-figure, 6-figure, 7, 8-figure businesses. You said something that I heard once, that you said that what got you to 6 figures would sabotage you at 7. Why is that? And how is that?
Because like you can get to, so like, all right, so let's say, for example, you're going from 0 to 100,000. So you go from 0 to 100,000, and let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's say you whatever you sell is, you sell something for $10,000. So you technically only got to get 10 clients to make 100,000. If you want to go to $1 million with that $10,000 offer, you need 100, right? Right. So it's like you serving, even with just a basic example like that, you serving 100 people compared to serving 10 people, you're gonna need a different type of system to service those individuals. So can you hustle and grind your way to 7? Yeah, but you're going to be tired if you make it. But you want to systemize, because now it's more about team and systems and things of that nature, not just hustling and grinding and trying to make another sale.
But you know, it all comes down to mindset too, because you sit down with the guy who's making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and then you talk about him making $30,000 a month, and it's like, he's doing all he can to make $40,000, you know, and to conceptualize that, what happens most of the time is not the process of possibility of it being done, but it's the possibility of them being able to do that. Because I'm 40, 50 years old, and I've never made more than $40,000, $50,000. How can I conceive making $30,000 in a month? What do you do with a guy like that?
So all right. So great question. So Jim Rohn said it this way, right? So this is one of my favorite guys ever. So Jim Rohn said, he was like, you don't get paid for the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to the hour. So right now, based on the value that you bring into the marketplace, the value that you're bringing to the marketplace is worth $40,000 a year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Could you be, because 40 times 12, well, that's 40 a year. So we say 40 times 12, it's 480. So could you be 12 times more valuable to the marketplace? You know what I'm saying? How could you be 10 times more valuable to the marketplace? So I give an example. And these are some of the examples I would give the guy. Because like sometimes if you try to force your paradigm onto somebody else's paradigm,
Exactly.
they're going to automatically resist it. So sometimes it's better to just give examples in like stories. That's why Jesus is so powerful. One of the reasons Jesus is so powerful because he taught in story.
In stories.
In
Right.
an analogy form, right?
Right.
So in metaphor, and you're like, oh, now that makes sense. So think about it. So some people will argue that, and I think rightfully so, that teachers are more valuable than NBA players. It's arguable, right?
It's arguable. It is.
It's arguable.
It depends on who it is.
I personally believe that teachers should get paid a lot. I think teachers should get paid. I think this should be one of the highest paid professions in the world.
Agreed.
And they should live tax-free. And they should get a ton of other crazy benefits.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I believe about teachers. Now, why do they make a fraction of what NBA players make? Because they add value to fewer people at a time. Here's what I mean. A teacher at max can only serve about 20 students at a time. 20, 25, depending on what school you go to.
Crowded classroom 30.
Crowded classroom 30.
Yeah.
Right? Max. An NBA player, what they got? 5, 10, 20 million watching the game?
Yeah.
And that's why they make more. So it's like, let's say this business owner you're talking about is a electrician. And he makes $40,000 a year as a solo electrician. He's on the truck. He's doing his thing. He does everything. Could he systemize his process of what he does and now bring on 2 other electricians? So now what he used to do in a month, he can get done twice that without him doing, and he pulled himself out of it.
Like what I was talking to my grandson about.
Yep. Or let's say he kept his, but he added 2 more people.
Right.
Now he getting 3 times the production done.
Yeah.
He's not working any more hours.
Yeah.
But now he's respectively 3x'd revenue with him doing the same level of work. Or if he bring those 2 people in, now he's respectfully doubled his revenue and pulled himself out of it. And now he can focus on a higher level. Now he says, okay, cool. I did that with those 2 individuals. What would it look like if I potentially brought on 2 more? And now I got 4 trucks out there moving around, 4 people moving. And now we began to do, because scale is simply duplication and multiplication. So how can I duplicate and multiply without my amount of hours? Now he's freed up himself to either focus high level on the business or to be with his wife more.
Because people think that when they're growing, they're scaling, but
No, it's not. It's 2 different things.
Yeah.
Because like if you're growing and the expenses are growing at the same rate as the revenue, that's growth. That's not scale. You want it. Scale takes on like the merry-go-round effect, where like it picks up momentum and it just keeps growing, but it's not costing you any more resources for it to grow.
So when they're looking at a business and they think, okay, I'm building a business because, I got more customers coming in, and so I'm building a business.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're scaling their business. That just means they're growing.
They're just growing. Because in many cases they're doing more. So like if you're doing more, and there ain't nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But like if you're doing more, it doesn't quite necessarily mean you scale.
So, you in doing that, you learned a lot about it. And you talk about attraction marketing and different things like that. And you called yourself the king of attraction.
King of client attraction.
King client attraction.
Yeah.
You retired that.
Yeah. I attempted to retire it, but it's like,
let you go.
it won't let me go. It won't let me go.
It just wouldn't let you go. It's like being the preachers that said they won't let you go.
They won't let me go. I mean, because it's kind of like one of those things where it's like,
it is
what it
is.
It is what it is. It's like, but one of the reasons I started to do it because I wanted people to understand that getting client, that's a small piece of what I really help do. Right. So I didn't want to be in that box. So that was probably me being selfish, maybe.
You just got more than one kingdom. That's all.
That's all it is. And I had to realize that as well.
That's it. You more than one kingdom.
100%.
And that really, which goes to what you talk about anyway, and scaling and everything, and being able to have this and that, and so forth. So you can still be the king of client attraction, and the king of some other things too. But in doing all of that, and how do you fit rest in? Because you're not walls to walls 24/7 anymore. I see you all the time, and you're traveling all the time with your family and so forth. How have you built vacations into your systems and your harmony with all of that?
Great question. So schedule it. The calendar is very, very important. So we used to do one of the things we do every year is we bring in Christmas in a different country. So we've been doing that for the last 5 years. So we already got that scheduled. So we got the whole week already booked off. No matter what happens, you couldn't pay me enough money to like get me nowhere to do anything that week. It's already booked out. Yeah. In 2 weeks we go to Orlando because my 11-year-old, he turns 12 on the 19th. But that week before we're going to Orlando, drive down, family road trip type of situation. So we're going to do that. My wife now works as a nurse. So like her schedule is a bit different. So a lot of times we got to work around her schedule, but we used to do something quarterly, like getaway type of thing, but her schedule is a little bit different. So really just being intentional about scheduling like dates, scheduling, vacations, schedule the getaway, schedule the rest, like all these things. You got to be intentional about it, because if you don't fill the calendar, something else will fill it with something else for you to do.
You tend to start things like that, but then that things fall off, and the family calendar is just up there, and it's nothing been written on there in weeks or months and so forth. How do you stay intentional about that and consistent with that?
So one of the things I do is one of the tools I use is Google Calendar. So my team knows that this is blocked. Nothing can be filled in this particular area. So like, or if you look at my calendar now, my running meetings, Tuesday evening, I got Bible study, and I'm teaching Bible study now for the next 2 weeks because I'm in my 6-week series. But it's on there. So somebody was trying to get me on there. They do a live show, but I was like, I can't do it because that's Bible study, and then I'm actually teaching Bible study, so I definitely can't do it. Right? Fridays tomorrow. So Fridays we do WWE SmackDown. Like my boys love basketball. They love wrestling.
They love wrestling.
So we got WWE SmackDown. It's on my calendar. So if we're not doing something, typically that's what we're doing. Monday Night Raw. So these things are on the calendar. Brunch with the Bros, I was just telling you about a few minutes ago. Yeah. Obviously we had this book. So the team, they schedule. I used to do the thing where I would double book myself and all that. That's why now I even tell people like, hey, I ain't trying to be funny or nothing, but send an email to this person and she'll get it scheduled, because I'll double book myself, right? Because I never want to be that guy where it's like I'm to a point where it's like I don't want to do your show or I don't want to do your event, but it's like I just got to schedule differently, and I got to have somebody manage the calendar or I'll overcommit. Yeah. Right. So I got to do it like that. So scheduling it on the Google Calendar, and I also share it with my wife as well. She don't look at the calendar as much as I do. But I make sure it's on there, and so now I can fill it around them. So every year, it's kind of like if you take a jar, and you put the big rocks in it first, and then you pour the sand in it. Right. The big rocks in there go first. So it's like my birthday. We typically go somewhere for my birthday. My pastors, we normally go somewhere for their birthdays. Those are the big rocks. Right. Those are the big rocks. Our Christmas vacation. Those are the big rocks. I had an event coming up on the 14th. But my 5-year-old, he's starting kindergarten, and they go at school on the 31st, but for kindergartners, they're doing this thing called Kinder Camp for a week just to get them acclimated with school. So I had to push and my wife is at the hospital that week on those days. So I was like, are we going to push the event from the 14th to the 21st? So now I can like take him and pick him up and stuff like that. Because if I had my nephew or something like that pick him up, it was gonna be a lot just making sure he was picked up, and me mentally being able to focus on the event. I was like, let's just move it. So just being intentional, with the time. Yeah,
well, I think it's exciting to do that, and you talk about the kids, and now you got your G-son, as you call him, your G-son. When you got 18 of them like me, you won't probably be calling me G-son. You just call.
You got 18 grandkids?
Be like, these are just the grandchildren. Wow. Wow. Well, I wasn't there. I didn't know. I wasn't there, man.
That's true. And
so, 18 of them, man. And,
wow.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. How many kids you got?
6.
6 kids.
6 kids. So you got what, 5?
I got 5.
5. So, man.
Yeah. Add up.
Remember the G-son and just put that bronze because after a while.
You got all of them. Wow.
That's a beautiful thing. But what's the one mindset that you hope that your children adopt from the way you live rather than just from what you say, because it's easy for a kid to go wayward, and then you're trying to pull them back in, and they're saying, well, when you did that, you all right, so I'm gonna be all right. How do you instill a mindset into your kids?
So you mean from a standpoint of like, you did these things and you overcame it, I can do these things too and like make it out, right?
I kind of rolled two things into one when I said that, as well as just being able to want them to be able to adopt a mindset from how you live as opposed to just what you're saying to them in the moment.
So one of the things that in the house, and you hear my boys, like especially my youngest ones, they'll be going back and they'll be like, Dad, MJ ain't being a man of his word. Right?
That's good. That's good.
So that's integrity. Like, integrity is doing what you're supposed to do even when nobody's looking.
That's good.
That's integrity. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. Not only to other people. If I tell Kevin I'm going to do something, if I tell you I'm going to do something, got to do it. That's my word.
Right.
More important, not more importantly, but just as importantly is, so like the Bible says, treat your neighbor, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Mm-hmm. But for me to love my neighbor, I got to what?
Love yourself.
I got to love myself.
Right.
So if I'm going to be a man of my word to you, I also got to be a man of my word to myself. Because that's how you build confidence.
Exactly.
Confide, right? I need to be able to confide in myself. My being needs to know if Marquel commits to something, right, he doesn't negotiate with himself to let himself off the hook because ain't nobody else going to know but him.
Right. I
got to commit to it. So it's like if you, my 11-year-old right now, he's working for, I put them in boxing. So he's working towards a match. And I told him, I'm like, hey, if you're going to commit to this, like make sure you want to do this because we don't stop in the middle when it gets hard.
Yeah.
We got to see it all the way through. Once you get to the match, if you decide you don't want to do it no more, cool. But it's like, if we committed to this, we got to see it all the way through because we can't create a habit of like stopping and quitting something because it get hard. So integrity, being a man of your word to yourself and to others.
And they don't forget.
100%.
They never forget. I remember when my son, we would always talk to him about taking care of his room and this and that and the other, and always on him about it. Then when we took him to college, he called back. He said, Dad, these guys never clean up their room. I feel like their mama.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, yeah, well, that's how come you know, because of how your mama was with you.
With on you. My 21-year-old texted me 2 months ago maybe, and he was like, I want to let you know that everything that you taught us growing up stuck. Yeah. Like the books. And he was like, especially for me, because now he got a good job, he's doing his thing, and he was like, when I'm talking to other people, he was like, I can see how far behind so many people are. Mm-hmm. So he was like, the stuff that you poured into us, like, was super, like, because like you said, they don't forget.
When my children I went through a divorce, and at the time, my youngest child, my daughter, was 12. And I lived in Augusta, then they lived in Atlanta, and so I would go back and forth, and as my daughter, who's an adult now with children, she said, Dad, one thing I can say is that you were never an absentee father. Say, and because it's stuck, and the things that my sons learned and then know, they don't forget.
No.
At all, man.
I don't.
That's huge. And so, with that, hey, look, you've received an honorary doctorate, and now you're Dr. Marquel Russell. Yeah. How does that hit, and what do you think responsibility comes when people refer to you that way?
So it's one of those things where it's one of those things that those titles I accumulated. Right. Over the years. Right. And it's kind of like sometimes people are correct. Oh, my bad. Dr. Marquel Russell. And I'm like, no, it ain't that deep. You know what I'm saying?
To you.
To me, right. To me, it's not. But to other people, like, that's a big deal. And I won't say it's not a big deal because I asked him, like, why did you honor me? Why did you give me this? And he was like, man, the work that you do, in the ministry, in the marketplace, we just wanted to honor that. And here's the funny thing. Years ago, I used to tell my business partner, Dre, and I used to be like, because, people will be looking crazy. So, like, when people invite me to the stage, people are normally like, if they don't know who I am, they're like, wait a minute, like this don't look like the guy who's supposed to be speaking. This don't look like the guy they were just talking about in the bio.
Yeah.
With tattoos and goals and a hoodie or black t-shirt. They're like, wait, this don't make sense.
Yeah.
So I was telling Dre one time, I was like, what's gonna really mess him up? If I mess around and get one of these honorary doctorates.
Mm-hmm.
And they invite me to the stage as Dr. Marquel Russell, and I come out with the hoodie. I spoke it.
You spoke it.
Then fast forward a few years, I end up getting one. So I'm grateful for it. I don't take it for granted.
So what's a belief that you had to shatter to become the man you are today?
The belief I had to adopt is I'm already enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need anything external. I don't need external validation. I don't need external affirmation. I'm already enough. God sent me here enough.
Yeah. Well, another person could look at that another way, and they could think, all right, I'm maxed out. I'm maxed out, but, I'm doing okay, and I'm maxed out, but what do I need to do to break the ceiling?
So when somebody says, okay, I'm maxed out, what does that mean? Yeah. Right. So what do you mean? So I would have to ask, like, what do you mean you're maxed out? Like you're tired, you're exhausted? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, you probably just need some rest. Right. But like this whole concept of like, people like sometimes, cause like even with me, when I first got into network marketing, I used to be like, man, I'm gonna retire by the time I turn 30. Yeah. But it's like retirement is like a man-made concept.
We all said that in network marketing.
Yeah. It's like, if you think about it in the Bible, man, it's like you had folks in there doing some big things. It's like everybody followed their mission all the way through until it was over with. Nobody was ever like, all right, I'm just going to chill and put my feet up. Everybody was like on mission. So when you say I'm maxed out, what does that mean? Like, is this particular season over and you should be shifting into something else? Or are you just exhausted because you're out here grinding? Yeah. Or like, you just ain't getting no rest. You ain't taking no walks. You ain't hitting the gym. Like what does that mean when you say I'm maxed out? That's what I'd be curious of.
Yeah. So that guy who's at that place, who has always been that guy, I've always been the doer. He's always been the guy who's made it happen. He's not been the guy who has leaned on people. Everybody's leaned on him. Mm-hmm. Tell me, I heard you mention your therapist and everything. Tell me about the value of that guy, not just getting therapy, but being coached.
So it's, again, the Bible, I think the Bible got all the cheat codes, right? It talks about like leaning not on your own understanding. Yeah. Right. So it says also being in the presence of multiple, right, a multitude of counsel, there's safety. Of counsels, right. So it's like, what is that? What does your advisory board look like? Mm-hmm. I think in life you got to have an advisory board, regardless if you're a business owner or you're an employee, whatever. You should have an advisory board, brothers or sisters or whatever that you can lean on and ask questions to. So, and that could look like, I would definitely have a coach that you're paying for whatever that looks like. A therapist that's really making you do some deep work, so you can realize a lot of the things that you're dealing with in your life is just a snapshot in time. Some of this stuff is from like when you were 3 or 4 years old, like you mentioned. Like sometimes I was doing an event the other day and I was like, how many of y'all like hate sales? This is entrepreneurs. And the majority of people say they hate sales. And I'm like, well, a lot of y'all, and as I go through it, I'm like, a lot of you all heard growing up that you shouldn't take money from strangers. Mm-hmm. And because you still believe that, it's hard for you to sell. That's why you hate selling. Exactly. Because you feel uncomfortable. And that's from childhood. So like really doing that deep work and having somebody who's going to challenge you and call you on your stuff and like point out your blind spots. Like we can't see our blind spots. So the first time the reason I got therapy initially, I used to have my first session and he was like, what do you want to get from this work? And I was like, I want you to be able to see my blind spots. Because I was winning. Making money, great business, doing the things, travel, all the things. But I was like, I know I got blind spots. Yeah. So I want you to be able to like see my blind spots.
When people see you in the front of the room, you're masterful in the front of the room. And I watch you in the front of the room myself. And I say, okay, how does a guy like that who came from where he came from, no formal education, the street smarts and things like that. But then I listen to you talk, and sometimes you're rattling off words and concepts and so forth. And I'm thinking, how does he develop those concepts and so forth that people who took years of business and education and so forth don't have? Where does that come from?
So I can't. So I would say a lot of it is like, number one is the anointing, right? It's a gift that, like, the teaching is a gift that God gave me.
Praise God.
Right. So that's number one. I can't not say that.
Yeah.
And I think we're also responsible when we get a gift, like how we hone the gift and how we treat the gift, right? So in that, I'm obsessed with I'm a teacher. People will see me in front of the room as a teacher, but I'm a student as well. So I'm obsessed with learning and getting better, and how do I communicate this better for it to land better. So those things are like super, super important to me. So even I'm listening to this podcast right now. It's called Mind the Game. It's LeBron James. The first season apparently was LeBron James and JJ Redick, and now it's LeBron James and Steve Nash. And it's like how these guys, I used to play basketball growing up. I love basketball. That's my favorite sport, the whole nine. But how these guys talk about basketball is on another level.
Different.
It's another level.
How so?
Like you just said, the terminology, the framework. Yeah. So I'm used to it being called a pick and roll. Mm-hmm. They don't call it a pick and roll. They call it a down. I think it's a thumb down, thumb up. It's different things. Like we're used to calling it a power forward or a center. They call it a big. Right? So it's like their terminology for it is way different. So it's almost like if we're talking business and we're talking LTV, we're talking AOV, we're talking click-through rates, we're talking, ROAS, return on ad spend. We're talking those things, and people who aren't in that, they're like, what are they talking about? Or if we're talking to Kev and he behind the camera and he's talking about flutter speed or all these some stuff I can't even think of when they're nerding out about it. I'm like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
But it's like you having a level of obsession, right, of your craft, where like you just obsessed on it and you're like, how do I get better at it? Because as I'm listening to these guys, I'm like, this is incredible. So just to answer, because like a lot of people ask me like, man, how did you learn to like speak on stage and things of that nature? Like what speaking programs and stuff like that you went through? I went to Toastmasters like 1 or 2 times, but it wasn't really my speed. And I just done it a lot. And I just realized that teaching was a gift that God gave me.
That's good. What's one principle or system that you tell every entrepreneur to install like right away if they want to get more power and more flow?
The youOS. Yeah. The youOS 100%. Because if not, you like business. So for years, I used to say business is a sport. Business is my sport of choice. And I know business, the only difference with business as a sport is like it doesn't have a, like when you play basketball and football, you got 4 quarters. It's an end point. In business, it ain't like that.
Yeah. Business
is an infinite game. Right? So it's like you got to have stamina. So one of the things I heard on this podcast, JJ Redick and LeBron, JJ Redick, he was saying that LeBron, and he was like, there's some players who have competitive stamina. And he was like, competitive stamina is being able to do something at a high level and then wake up tomorrow and then do it again.
That's good.
And then wake up tomorrow and then do it again.
Right.
And then wake up tomorrow and then do it again.
Yeah.
And then wake up tomorrow and do it again for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, I think like LeBron, like 22 years.
Yeah.
Like how is he able to do that? He got competitive stamina. And his routine. He isn't just showing up to the gym every day and working out. He isn't hanging out late nights. He ain't eating whatever he want to eat. He sleep. I think I read somewhere said, look, bro, I was actually, when I was pulling up, I was about to listen to the episode where he talks about his routine. But I think I read somewhere said LeBron gets 10 hours of sleep every night. Right.
That's so good.
What he's eating. Right. Yeah. You can see he likes wine and things of that nature. But of course you can tell like I think I read something, he spends $1.5 million a year just on his body, on trainers, on things of that nature. It's like, that's how he maintains the stamina and like how he fills himself up. Like how he fills himself up is going to dictate how he shows up as a father, how he shows up as a husband, how he shows up as a leader on the court, how he's going to show up and communicate. You know, imagine he goes to the game and then afterwards he's showing up at the press conference and he's exhausted. You can't go 22 years later. So it's like a youOS, like you as the founder, as the leader, how are you filling yourself up every day? If you're exhausted, if you're tired, you snappy, you can't think clearly, like how are you going to run a company? Or how are you going to run, even if you're not a business owner and you're watching this, you are still an executive of your life.
Where can people go to get a better understanding of youOS?
So if you go to scalemadeeasy.com, so go to scalemadeeasy.com, you'll actually see where you can actually download the Predictable Scale Playbook for free. I want as many people to get it as possible, so I just made it available. And that's one of the systems you get if you go to scalemadeeasy.com, or if you send me a message on Instagram or whatever your favorite platform is, Marquel Russell, let me know. I'll send you the link directly, but scalemadeeasy.com, you'll be good.
Is that where they can get you on Instagram? Just Marquel Russell?
Marquel Russell, all platforms. You LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whatever your favorite platform is.
What's the last word that you could leave with this audience?
I would say, if I was to give one last word, I would say I say this over and over again. We live in the best time in the history of the world to be alive.
Yeah.
Let's just think about it, man. It's like the fact that you can be in a time where you can like get real-time updates from the president on Twitter or X.
Yeah.
Like that's different. Now what you could judge
whatever the update is.
Whatever the update is. Judge it however you want to judge it. But just think about it. Like you know what I'm saying? It's like you can be somewhere wherever you are in the world right now watching this podcast episode.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't get this level of wisdom. Like somebody can watch your show. You have 18 grandkids, 6 kids. Like you had an amazing life, done some amazing things, and they can watch your show for free from anywhere in the world. They don't even need to have Wi-Fi. They can go to McDonald's and connect to free Wi-Fi and get wisdom, right? Some of your people like, I can't afford mentorship. Well, my first mentors was Dr. Miles Monroe, right? This was before he passed. Jim Rohn. Like Jim Rohn was already there.
Yeah.
Right when I came across him.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, like we have access to that. Like our ancestors, Madam C.J. Walker, A.G. Gaston, you know, Malcolm X, O.W. Gurley. Like these individuals built empires and massive movements, but they didn't have Zoom.
Yeah.
They didn't have podcasts. They didn't have social media. They didn't have Cash App. They had none of those things. We got an abundance of resources. We literally got AI. Like we live in the best time in the history of the world to be alive, but are we going to be like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, are we going to look back and be like, man, I lived during the 2024, 2025 era and these things happened. And because of that, I took advantage of the resources. And because of that, now we get to have this life. Or you're going to look up and be like, I lived during this time. These things happened. I didn't take advantage of it. And now we got this life. You get to choose.
Yeah, man. Listen, I always say that we are either moving forward or we're moving backwards. We're never standing still.
Never.
You can say, well, I'm going to stand still and see the glory. No, you're never standing
you
still.
growing or you dying.
That's it, man. Just like food. Man.
Yep.
You're growing or you're dying.
Just like food. That's good.
Know? And just like you're standing at the stop, man, the bus is going to come by you. You're not standing still. You're moving backward. You missed the bus.
And I think just another part of that is just when we're moving, because life can get so busy, just making sure we're present in the moving to not miss all the moments that matter. Because I know for me personally, we can get so caught up in the moving that we miss out on the moment, being present to the moments that matter and seeing the kids growing up. Seeing looking in your kids' eyes and looking up from the phone for a minute, the hugs, the grass growing. Man, it's a squirrel right there. I was walking in my neighborhood the other day, and it was like a squirrel like on the sidewalk, and it didn't take off running at first. And I was like, it's just cool to be able to just like take in. Like if we just walk around outside and we look at like everything we're surrounded by, but a lot of times we be so busy we don't even see it.
Yeah, when my kids were growing up and we would drive, and I would say, look out the window and tell me what you see. And they couldn't say, I see a car. they'd have to tell me about the tree, the cloud, what the shape of the cloud was. I talked to them about cumulus clouds, cirrus clouds,
Yeah.
all of that. Tell me what you see.
What you see?
I want you to be aware of what's going on around you. And even now, because you're driving, you're riding, their heads are down.
Yep.
Man, they wouldn't even know how to get back home.
Nope.
You know, because they're not aware.
Not aware
of what's going on around them. So
Yep.
even just looking at the trees and the color and the shapes and everything, it's a beginning of awareness
Yep.
of what's going on around you and being aware of it and then taking advantage of
Yeah,
it.
my 11-year-old. I'll say this: my 11-year-old, he came in the other morning and he was kind of giving me some updates on like how the NBA championship win and how WWE went Monday. And he shared that was early in the morning, and then he like laid there on the bed and then he just dozed off under me. But it was like just me being aware of the moment.
That's it.
And not like jumping up, getting out of the bed, but like being like, man, he 11, he about to be 12 years old. Yeah. But he still lays up on his dad, like that's so not good. Missing those moments. You know what I'm saying?
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, this has been rich.
It's very rich for sure.
It's been rich, and I'm excited about it. The opportunity to sit down with you. And
likewise.
To just chat with you. It's an honor for me.
Likewise. The feeling is mutual.
To do that. And so, hey, listen, for those of you who are watching, listening, it's just been a masterpiece, and I want you to go back and watch it, listen to it over and over again, and share it with some other people. You know, like this, subscribe, and because there's a lot more stuff that we have coming for you. In the meantime, keep adapting, keep adjusting, and keep reaching for those higher heights. We'll see you the next time on Shattered Mindset. Take care.